UFC Fight Night, Rozenstruik, Gaziev. We're here to break down all the fights, being joined, as always, by my good buddy Jim. Jim, we crushed last week. It was such a beautiful night of fights. PFL was amazing. UFC was amazing. Hoping for more success here. We already have a 5% play that is up. That's our max play. We hit our max play last week. We're going to do it again this week. I feel great. Overall takes from this card, what do you think?
A lot of people are saying this card is bad, and it's not the best talent-wise, but sometimes those are the most exciting cards. I think we're going to see a lot of excitement. I'm more excited for this card than a lot of the past cards over the past month, just because I think we're going to have some fun, and we're going to make some money.
I think I like these events where you got a lot of guys that need to prove a point, need to show off. These aren't these cautious fighters on some of these pay-per-views that we've seen, you know? So, yeah, I'm with you. Let's get right into it. Radzhabov and Al-Selwady. Al-Selwady has a special place in my heart. I know you're not a big fan of him because I think you were on Cartwright on Contender Series. I was on Al-Selwady, so we went head to head here. What do you make of this one? I don't know. I am out on Radzhabov. I don't want anything to do with him. What do you think?
I don't want anything to do with either of these guys.
Okay.
I'll take it a step further. Too many unknowns in this fight. Way too many unknowns. And when you're talking about betting and line value, when you don't have an edge in a matchup, you just walk the other way. I think it could be a competitive contest. I really can't get anywhere with anything in this. I've looked it up, down, left, right. I think it's going to be competitive. We could see a cardio issue late. But to start the night off, I think we just sit back and hang out and watch this one. And there's some better spots more down the card. I would lean Al-Selwady, but it's too dangerous for my blood.
Yeah, so Radzhabov, I mean, his striking defense, I mean, you could say it's bad if he had any. I mean, he just doesn't have any striking defense. And we saw Rebecca absolutely torch him on the feet. He had absolutely no answer for the strikes, which I thought was interesting because I thought Rebecca, we probably all thought it was going to be a wrestling, kind of a grappling match. And Rebecca obviously saw something and was like, nope, I'm going to hammer this guy. Went back and watched his fight against Ribovic, and when he had Ribovic on the ground, he was fine. But, man, when he was standing, even Esteban Ribovic was tearing him apart. So I'm sure Radzhabov is going to want to try and get this to the ground. Problem is, I don't think Al-Selwady's that easy to get to the ground, and you know that's what he's going to be ready for. On the feet, I think it's Selwady all day. So I'm going to lean Al-Selwady in this one. I'm with you, though. Cannot get to the window on it. These are two guys I don't know enough about Selwady. I was high on him against Cartwright, not Cartwright. Why did I say Cartwright? I was high on him against Hardwick, and I thought Hardwick was a disappointment. I think we would both say that I don't think Hardwick was ready, and Al-Selwady, maybe we have a little bit of inflated opinion on him because he looked good. He was an underdog. So, yeah, it's a pass for me on this one. Ludovit Klein takes on poor AJ Cunningham. I guess I'll frame it this way. Does AJ Cunningham have a snowball's chance in hell in this fight?
I don't know. The steps to the cage can be tricky sometimes. So if Klein slips and falls, he's got a shot. But other than that, this is Ludovit Klein just trying to keep a fight on an 11-fight card so that they don't drop down to 10 fights. You know, you make a call, you keep the fight on. That's what this fight comes down to me. I don't see it. I don't see it. We've seen improvements in Klein's wrestling, so I'm not worried if it goes there. He's got such a massive advantage on the feet. Cunningham is so hittable. And, you know, I hear a lot of talk. He trains with Bryce Mitchell. Well, Bryce Mitchell's hittable. So who's to think that would change at all? If that's your main training partner, I think this is just how these guys fight. And I like Klein. I like him by finish.
Yeah, so AJ Cunningham, amazing story, sad story from him about what happened in his childhood. This guy got killed by Stephen Nguyen, and I don't think Stephen Nguyen's very good. I don't think he's good at all. And but still, I was on Steven Wynn on Contender Series. Wynn just absolutely, I mean, it killed him. And so I don't see how you go from losing that bad to Steven Wynn. Okay, congratulations. He goes and he beats something called a Justice Perez. Great for him. I'm glad he's getting a shot in UFC. I worry for him, though, because Ludovit Klein put an ass whooping on Baja Mendez in the last fight. Absolutely put it on him. I was so wrong on that one. I had Baja Mendez, and man, Ludovit Klein showed me all kinds of wrong. The line is way too big, but I mean, I think we're both going to look at Klein by finish, and this might be a good time to say why we don't pick submission or knockout, right? We just take inside the distance or nothing, right?
Yes, it's not worth the odds boost. It's not worth it. A lot can happen in a fight. Yeah, a lot can happen in a fight.
I deviated one time. I took Tatsuro Taira. He gets by submission. He gets his first knockout of his career. So never again. So Ludovit Klein's the big winner, probably by finish. Chris Leroy Duncan, Claudio Ribeiro. Big thing to me was the size difference at face-offs. Holy cow! I like Chris Leroy Duncan before, and now I love him looking at the face-off. So what's your take on this fight?
That face-off size difference really swayed me. I like you said, I liked Duncan before. I don't think Claudio Ribeiro is a UFC caliber fighter. Period. There's no sense going into some big giant breakdown when you have a fighter that cannot go 15 minutes. Okay, is not defensively sound, is reliant on the knockout, doesn't have the defensive or offensive wrestling to keep it in his realm. There are no positives coming my way that are telling me that he has a shot. And Chris Leroy Duncan, even though he has his faults, is a much more polished fighter than him. I think this is going to be Leroy Duncan weathering the first 2.5 minutes, and then he can do whatever he wants. However he chooses to have this fight go, he's going to decide.
I liked how Duncan responded. He lost to Petrosian, which we correctly picked, and then he gets Dennis Tululin. And, Tululin is a little bit similar to Ribeiro, depended on the finish, not good cardio, and Duncan just pushed Tululin up against the fence, tired him out, and bang, gets the finish late. I could see a very similar style. I could see Duncan absolutely doing that. I mean, this is a Claudio Ribeiro that got gassed in a fight against Abdul Rahman. So you got to be kidding me that Claudio Ribeiro is going to have cardio against Chris Duncan, and then you're right. That height difference, man, was just bonkers. That was really crazy. So I like Chris Duncan. He's around minus 350, I believe, at the time of recording this. So I wouldn't be mad at a Chris Duncan finish.
No, I would not either. I don't think Claudio can go 15.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just don't think he can.
Yeah. Javid, Basharat, and Zahabi. This is another one. These huge lines. Let me ask you this. I don't remember a UFC card with this many huge lines. Is this just because of this card, or is this because the books are like, we're going to make you pay big time if you want to bet on Basharat against Zahabi? Is this just what it's going to be like moving forward with some of these massive favorites, or is this just this particular card?
I think it has a lot to do with this particular card. Remember, these lines were all very playable earlier in the week. Very playable. They just took an ungodly amount of money. And I think the books are protecting themselves, and they got a lot of early money in on a lot of these fights. We've seen line movement up, down this entire card. I mean, every favorite is getting steamed almost. So I think it's a little bit of both. It is a low quality card. It's a card that was supposed to be in Abu Dhabi, which is now in the Apex. And it's an interesting card from that perspective of why things are happening that way. I do think the favorites roll. So I think they're smart to do this to protect themselves.
Yeah, Basharat was another one that was way taller than Zahabi. I don't know what breakdown you need. Zahabi's fairly low volume. I'm not real impressed with his wins. Okay, he gets a knockout against Richie Lang, whoop-dee, Ricky Tercios. Knocks out Draco Rodriguez. But Basharat, man, I love listening to Basharat's interviews. He is
Yes.
a computer. Like, his brain literally just works like a computer. He probably watches more film than any UFC fighter. And you just watch his ring IQ when he is going up against these guys. You can just see him downloading information and figure guys. I love watching him. I know he doesn't finish. I don't care. I like watching him figure these guys out really quick and then implementing his game plan. So, to me, it's Basharat. It's a parlay piece. I don't know, man. Basharat by decision. I mean, that's what he does here in the UFC. But eventually, he's going to finish somebody. I don't think Zahabi is very good.
No, and this is the thing about Basharat. He doesn't finish because he doesn't have to finish. Most of the time, he's up going into the third. I don't think that he's going to be down, but when he starts to really want to get finishes, he can go for them, and he will. We saw this with his brother. Remember, it was Basharat
Same
fight
thing.
we're going to take to go the distance, and he just smokes the guy by submission in the first round. These guys are smart. You hit the nail right on the head. They are educated fighters, skilled fighters, well-rounded fighters. They do what they have to do to get a win, and they're not going to put themselves in harm's way. They're just not.
Yeah.
Now, if Zahabi is gassing out from the wrestling, which is I suspect is going to happen, I do not hate a Basharat round 3 or late round 2 submission.
Ooh, I like
if
that.
If he gets a good position in round 3, what have we seen from Zahabi that he's going to be able to defend Basharat from his back? And we've seen Basharat take the back. That's where he goes. He controls you till you make a mistake. And we just saw this last week in the UFC and Bellator. If fighters sacrifice control, they lose the position. This man does not sacrifice his control. He will hold you there for 15 minutes if he has to.
Yeah, you're referring to Mr. Bondar.
There was a few.
Bondar was the worst.
Yes.
Bondar was the absolute worst. Like, dude, you had him. You easily had the position and gave it up, not once, but multiple times. Oh, Bondar. Oh, man, he really killed us on that one. Vinicius, Oliveira, and Benardo. I don't even know how to pronounce this guy's name. Sopaj?
I've heard Sopaj.
Okay. All right. We'll just call him Benardo. So you got two guys that love finishes, and you watch this guy's fights, and it's tough to take away much. Okay, when I say it's tough to take away much, I just don't know what the level of competition that he's fought here is. I've never heard of these guys. I don't know. I'm not familiar with any of these except, for Brave. Okay, he's getting finishes against, really good guys, but Vinicius Oliveira, man, hits like a tank. This guy's got legit power, and you can see it in all of his fights. He got quite overzealous in this loss here. But, man, what he did to Victor Madrigal on Contender Series was pretty amazing. I think the very first thing that we would look at, fight not to go the distance. But, man, we've seen some of these fights that are supposedly not going to go the distance. Then you get two guys that are scared to get knocked out, and they end up, kind of futzing around, and it's the jab fest. It's kind of outside, and, guys aren't willing to take a chance. I don't think those two guys check this box. I like Oliveira because I think he hits so hard that he only needs a couple times to tee off on Benardo, and Benardo will be in trouble. And I'm just not sure Benardo can hit that hard against somebody like Oliveira. Probably unders is a decent way to go, but I like Oliveira, and this is a pretty playable line. It's like minus 135. What's your takeaway on this fight?
Bernardo is everybody's underdog darling. I think there's two darling underdogs on this card because everybody's trying to chase and find plus money. I don't think that's a good recipe for gambling success when you're dealt a card like this. Don't try to drum up lines that aren't really value. Just because it's plus money doesn't mean it's value. Bernardo had a fight booked. He was set to defend his title, so he has been in camp. That's a check mark for him that he is in shape. But we had a size difference at face-offs. Oliveira is vicious. Bernardo is vicious. I agree with you on the under. I know we don't always want to agree on everything, but I'm not willing to take a side and plant my flag on this and hope for an underdog to come through. I agree that this has the recipes for fireworks. At face-offs, these guys got in each other's face. They were talking. There's no love lost.
That was awesome.
They're going to
awesome
go after each
face-off.
other. Yeah. Yeah, probably the best face-off on the card. This fight has gotten some excitement in me a little bit here, seeing how these guys are coming in.
Opinion on the fight, or are you just looking for just entertain me? Let me see somebody get knocked out.
Doesn't go the distance, parlayed with one of your favorites. That's the way to play this card, is 2 fight parlays and get the numbers down. Don't overextend. I think it's a great parlay piece.
Guys, go ahead and hit the like button. Tell us your best bet in the comment section. Love seeing what everybody's on. You talked about that fight being exciting. Boy, this next one, probably polar opposite. Eryk Anders and Jamie Pickett. Jim, Eryk Anders is a minus 500 now favorite. You feeling Eryk Anders at minus 500, or are you feeling that you want to bet on Jamie Pickett? What do you like in this one?
Well, if I bet Eryk Anders at minus 500, you better kick me off this show, because I'm never, ever going to bet minus 500 on Eryk Anders. So everybody's got the same take on this fight. Overs, going the distance, 2 bad fighters, Anders by finish. That's the only 3 things that nobody's on Jamie Pickett. That scares the heck out of me. When we have somebody, I've heard nobody pick Jamie Pickett, 0. That scares me when we're all on one side. The other thing that scares me is I do believe Anders wins. Now, James Lynch did an interview with Jamie Pickett, and he talked about having a nagging injury for over a year now. He did not disclose what it was, but he did say that he did not want Eryk Anders to target said injury. So if we think about injuries that we can target, it's usually the legs. You can't target an injured elbow. You can't target a
it's tough.
A neck. I guess you could with a guillotine, but a back. But it's probably a lower body injury. If it is a lower body injury, I could see Eryk Anders most certainly getting the wrestling going. And I'm worried about Jamie Pickett defensively for 3 rounds. So that interview alone in itself has gotten me off of this fight. It probably is Anders. I feel like there's going to be a lot of picks of Anders by decision and overs, and we could see a injured Jamie Pickett fold up in 4.5 minutes, and Eryk Anders gets a finish. I can't believe I'm saying it, but to me it's too volatile. There's better spots on the card, but I am picking Anders to get this thing done.
I really wanted to pick Jamie Pickett. He wasn't terrible against Josh Fremd.
No.
He had his moments, but it's Josh Fremd. So, before that, gets crushed by Bo Nickel. Getting finished by Dennis Lulin and Kyle Dawkins is a horrible look. I was actually going to pick Jamie Pickett until I heard you tell me a bit. You got to look at this thing with Jamie Pickett being hurt. I wonder if that's why this Eryk Anders line is minus 500. I don't trust Eryk Anders in the slightest. There's not one UFC fighter I would trust him at minus 500. He doesn't have good cardio. He's low volume. I mean, he was okay against Marc-Andre Barrio, but Barrio just, beat him up on the feet. It wasn't he just there's Eryk Anders is not a minus 500 fighter. There's no world that I'm laying minus 500 on Eryk Anders, and I'm with you that anybody that advises you to lay minus 500 on Eryk Anders, I would think twice about that one. So he's probably the winner. Not only do you have Jamie Pickett, but you have an injured Jamie Pickett. So that's a little bit rough. So we'll just move on because this fight probably doesn't provide much value here.
No.
Matt Schnell and Steve Erceg. We've been good on Steve Erceg. We had him pegged. Yeah, we had him pegged when he came in to face David Dvorak. David Dvorak was a big favorite, and you and I both were like, be careful about betting against Erceg. Erceg comes from that eternal MMA, and they put out good fighters. Their fighters have good cardio. Their fighters normally have pretty good ground game, and this guy's now 2-0 in the UFC. I guess it all comes down to what Matt Schnell are we going to get. Here's the question. Is Matt Schnell a shot fighter? You think he's done?
I do think that his days are numbered. I think that his days are numbered. The low durability early in his career is not going to get any better. I think that Matt Schnell's ground game is overrated. I think his finishing ability is overrated when you look at who he has finished. I mean, if you scroll down there's not a lot of names like Suma. Everyone's talking about the Sumadarji fight. Listen, we know exactly what Sumadarji is. He is a fighter with zero defense and all offense. So, of course, it's easy to finish him. He did survive some adversity. Good for you.
Some adversity. He was unconscious.
But doesn't that just say more about Sumadarji's inability as being a good fighter?
Yes. Wasn't Sumadarji hurt? Did he have like a torn ACL or something?
I don't remember, but it wouldn't shock me the way that
pretty
fight
sure
played
he
out.
did. Yeah.
You know, it just Tyson Nam, okay, split decision. Tyson Nam, whatever. Pantoja lost. Jordan Espinoza, Louis Smolka. Come on. I mean, I think Erceg is the goods. This is another one where I am very interested in Erceg by finish. I know that he's more of a decisionator, but I think Matt Schnell is going to be in deep, deep trouble the second that he gets clipped because Erceg has a fantastic ground game. Fantastic ground game as well. So I could see him jumping on something and getting Schnell out of there.
Yeah, I'm with you. Schnell, his last couple fights, his last 3 fights, he's just looked terrible. I mean, he really should be 0-3, but gets the win. And that win, man, was so insane. It was one of the most insane fights of the year. I think it was voted like at least one of the top 3 most insane fights of the year. But it was a bad look. It was a bad look for him, and then he gets finished in the next fight. So, yeah, and when he got finished in that next one, it was glaring, man.
Yeah.
Like, Nicolau really put it on him. So I'm with you. I like Erceg a lot. And I really like betting on these fighters that we have good reads on. There's a couple on this card that we've just had really good reads on. And why worry about other fights when you got some fighters that you know pretty well and you've been cashing on? So Umar Nurmagomedov against what? Oh, Tapology's already started to change the change the record. I love it. I love when we have fighters who get busted lying about their record. It's just warms my heart. So 17-1 is now 16-1 for Bekzat Almakhan. I believe they're saying it should be 14-1. I don't know much about this guy. Kind of looked at some of his fights. I don't really know what to take away from winning against these guys in Octagon and UAE. But I do know Umar's the goods. And you were saying, I love your point. So first off, talk about how you were saying Umar really should finish if he really wants to get a title fight. But then how buddy these guys were.
Yeah, it's got me nervous. I put a bet in on Umar by finish because I just don't think we're ever going to see that value again.
Minus 125 is the line for
crazy.
Umar by finish.
And it scares me a little bit that it could be a trap line, but I was all about him by finish until I saw them face off, and they're hugging and walking off, holding hands. The only thing they weren't doing was skipping together. They were so friendly. So that could mean one of two things. Is this going to be a wrestling match for 15 minutes where he doesn't want to do damage? Or is this one of those moments where Umar knows he's going to finish him, but he's probably going to finish him by sub? I don't see it being a knockout. He's not going to pound his head into the ground. This also could be a situation where, Bekzat knows that he doesn't have a chance. He's very happy to be here, which is one of our favorite reads. The one thing of note that I found out with this also was that he was already signed to the UFC before they booked this fight.
Oh, really?
He was going to make a debut, so he was on their radar. But let's make no bones about it, folks. Nurmagomedov is our next title challenger in this weight class. And, if it wasn't for Corey Sandhagen, he would have already fought Sandhagen and he'd be fighting a top 3 guy, or fighting for a title. So I can't put faith in a debuting fighter to take Umar, take him out. So I think it's going to be a by submission. I still think he gets it done. But the chumminess bothers me.
That was glaring. It was like, wow, these guys I don't know, have they met before? Why are they so friendly? I
don't know.
That was a weird one for sure. So, all right, now let's get into a polarizing fight here. Alex Perez and Muhammad Mokaev. We have so much going on this fight. We have an undefeated fighter who is an undefeated fighter by the hair on his chitty chin. We've got the side hustle theory, which is when people have when the UFC is their side hustle,
Yes.
which it sure seems like Alex Perez is. This is his side hustle. Which fighter do you want to start with? I'll let you pick. We'll break them down fighter by fighter, and then we'll give the prediction. Which one do you want to start with?
Ooh. So I know you like talking about the. I'll give you Perez. I'll take Mokaev.
All right, go ahead
All right,
with
so-
Mokaev.
I loved what I heard from Mokaev at the presser. Absolutely loved it. He seems, remember, this kid is only 23 years old. He still has to grow up, okay? His skill level is fantastic for a 23-year-old. And everybody is looking for a reason to fade this guy. Everybody is. Shouldn't be undefeated, shouldn't be this, he's boring, he's this, he's that. But go down his fights. Submission, 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 decision, submission, submission, submission. So I know it takes to the third round, but why do we have to have submissions in round 1 and 2 for them to be exciting? Or finishes that count. He is a just nonstop wrestler. I love the maturity. I love that he wants to stay active, and he has a very real plan to fight for the title. He laid it out at the press conference. I think he's a smart fighter. He knows exactly how to beat Perez. He's going to take his back, and I think he's going to get there before the end of the fight and finish him. I don't see Perez being able to keep up with him for 3 rounds on the ground. I just don't.
The counter, of course, is that, well, Tim Elliott, he was losing that fight. I don't think he knew it, but he was down on some judges' scorecards. But that being said, Tim Elliott's a dog, man. I mean, anytime you finish Tim Elliott, I know it's short notice for Tim Elliott, but that's a good finish. Philo, I mean, listen, that was a little. He almost lost that one. Malcolm Gordon, that wasn't a great look considering Jimmy Flick could beat up on Malcolm Gordon, and then the Charles Johnson. I don't know what to make of the Charles Johnson fight anymore. I thought it was kind of a decent win for Mokaev, and then I kind of went back and I was like, well, maybe not, but I don't know. But guillotine on Cody Durden looks pretty good. I don't know, man. There were so many times he could have lost. So, do you say, well, it's a credit to him because he faced adversity as a young guy and he is undefeated, or do you say that there's holes in his game and he needs to shore him up? He's lucky to be 10-0. I don't know. What's your opinion? Is it a lucky 10-0 or is it really skilled?
No, I don't believe it's a lucky 10-0, and I think that's very lazy of people to say that it's a lucky 10-0. We're talking about the UFC, the greatest fight organization on planet Earth. For a 23-year-old to be undefeated while fighting in the UFC, there is skill behind that. It is not luck. The very interesting thing that he said, he talked specifically about that Charles Johnson fight, and I'm glad you brought that fight up. He said, when he fights, he wants to control, and he's working towards the finish. The only thing that he worries about is remembering how much time is left. So in his interview, he said, I look to my corner and I say a lot, how much time? How much time? So do you think with that statement and all these round 3 finishes, that doesn't line up? I think he's just a very strategic fighter, and this is how he fights. Again, tries not to put himself in danger. If you're washing Malcolm Gordon and you want to get cage time, why not just hang out? I mean, was he really ever in danger in that fight? No.
No, he wasn't.
Look, his stand-up needs work. His striking defense needs work. But his wrestling pedigree and control time is elite. It really is at 23 years old.
I like it. And sometimes we have to remember with these guys. Yeah, 23. And so saying I was worried about Rosas, and we didn't get to see him, but that's a 19-year-old. Like, who's the other one? Michael Morales. These are young guys. Some of them, they're coming up. So, all right, let's talk about Alex Perez. 24-7. That's crazy. So, loses to Pantoja, gets subbed early on. It goes down as a rear naked choke. I would change this to loss dash face ripped off.
Yes.
That was Pantoja about pulled his head completely off his body. It almost looked like a fatality from Mortal Kombat. and so then before that, Figueiredo subs him, and you're saying, okay, well, Yeah, but that's Davis and Figueiredo, and that was back in 2020. So Figueiredo was at his peak of his powers. Pantoja, who's better than Pantoja right now? The big thing is all these canceled fights. This guy's constantly hurt. Look at all these. What is there, 10, 13 of them? So
It's crazy.
it is crazy. And so it's really, really strange here. So you got a loss to Pantoja in 2022, a loss to Figueiredo in 2020. And then before that, Formiga, Jordan Espinoza, Mark De La Rosa. Like, what's this gap here in these guys aren't even in the UFC anymore. So he wins these three, loses to, Benavidez, Ultimate Fighter. So I don't know what to make of him except that clearly this guy is not depending on the UFC money for a living.
No.
So I'll let you tell what he was talking about, why we're using this as the side hustle theory.
So the first thing I heard in his interview is he flat out said, every fighter says this too who's not in title contention. I do this because I love it. He loves to coach. He loves to grapple. He loves this. But he flat out said, my acai business is where I make all my money. I don't use my UFC money. Guys, I'm out. That's all I need to hear. That's all I need to hear. Not only that, look at the rounds of his losses. So if you scroll down his losses, round 1, round 1, round 1, round 2, round 1, round 2. This guy's not gritting out 2 rounds and then fighting for it in the third when he's gassed. When there's adversity, I mean, he's just lost. And
He melts. Yeah.
look, I know Pantoja is a fantastic grappler, but he climbed him like a tree with no resistance. So I just don't see how Mokaev doesn't do the same thing. I just don't see it.
I was so ready to go ballsy and take Alex Perez, and then I heard it. And then I heard that no, this is his part-time gig. And then you're looking, and you're like, well, yeah, of course it's his part-time gig. He's fought twice in the last 5 years. Yeah. Imagine showing up to work twice in 5 years. So, yeah, he's clearly got other things going on outside the ring. I would be pretty surprised that he has the same level of motivation in this fight as Mokaev. So. Yeah, I wanted to have the sexy pick and go with Alex Perez, and I heard that, and we just fading guys who are open about the side hustle. That UFC is literally their side hustle against guys that are out here, blood, death, war, their life depends on it. There's really no comparison. So Mokaev is definitely the pick in this one for us.
It's good value with him by finish too. To me, it's great value. I believe it was minus 150 last I checked. I think that's fantastic value. If you're scared about Mokaev being a fraud, take the fight not to go the distance. If he loses, we all know if Mokaev loses, it's going to be by finish.
Probably.
It's going to be an oops, right? It's not going to be Perez by decision.
No, Perez isn't grinding Mokaev down in a really well thought out, amazing game plan. No, you're right. That actually might be the best way to attack this one. I'm completely off of these fighters that UFC is not their full-time thing. So Mokaev is probably the way to go. But, yeah, fight not to go the distance is an interesting one. Vitor Petrino and Tyson Pedro, 2 guys that I have damn good reads on. I have made money on most of these recent fights for both of these guys. So I'll start with Vitor Petrino, 10-0. So when he was on Contender Series, interesting, was it Rodolfo Beato?
Yes.
Petrino's beaten him twice. That's those 2 losses is the same one. My worry on that one was Petrino looked like he might have had some cardio issues. He didn't look that great as the fight went on. Now, he does get to finish, but when you go back and look, he was kind of gassing a little bit. It wasn't great. So you've really turned me on to this, that sometimes these fighters need cage time. Like we need to Biagio Ali Walsh.
Yep.
We talked. You nailed that one, and boy, not only does he need cage time, he needs work on some striking defense and a lot of other time. So he goes the distance against Pleasure Man, but then I loved that he got to finish on Prochnow in round 3.
Yes,
he had the gas. and he had the ability to take Prochnio down and get the finish, and then fights Bukauskas and gets a beautiful check hook. I mean, smoked Bukauskas as he was coming in. So we've done well reading Petrino here on this one. So, and obviously he's 10-0, so we've been betting on him to win. But I like that I watched him have cardio issues on Contender Series, and now I'm not that worried about his cardio. Is he going to be the freshest guy in the world in the last round? No, but we don't need him to be the freshest guy in the world. We need him to survive. And I like Victor Petrino a lot over Tyson Pedro. You're getting a Tyson Pedro who, bad cardio issues. Really, really difficult cardio issues. And I picked Bukauskas against Petrino, and that's exactly what the fight unfolded pretty much exactly how I thought it was. Pedro, if he doesn't get the first round finish, he gets tired, and Bukauskas was able to just move around, probably lost the first round, and then wins the next 2 rounds. Okay, I get that Tyson Pedro was 3-1. He beat Ike Villanueva in Ike Villanueva's last fight ever in the UFC. He beat legend Harry Hunsucker, and then Pleasure Man, who has the striking defense of my glass here. So Pedro's 3-1, but man, big questions on that. And when we look at Tyson Pedro here, I mean, you were talking about it. You and I were both talking about it. When he wins, it's always in the first round, isn't it? He just doesn't win if it gets out of the first round. So I'm all over Petrino here in this one. I wouldn't be surprised if Petrino finishes Tyson Pedro. What do you think about this fight?
I agree with everything that you're saying. And I've been on Tyson Pedro. I have been on. I was on Tyson Pedro over Bukauskas, and we were head-to-head on that one. And I was like, really? And you were right. You were right. If it doesn't get done in round 1, it's an issue. I've heard he was sick and yada, yada, yada. I mean, I'm so done with the post-fight excuses. You know, if you're limited that much, then don't take the fight. Okay? Don't take the fight. If you're serious about your career,
it's okay. Polarosis. What? Hey, if you're sick, don't go out there. If you think you're going to lose, give me a break.
Now, maybe I'll get some flack from this, but the laziest handicap that I've heard all week has to do with this fight. And it's the old MMA math of Anton, the Pleasure Man, Turkalj. Well, Tyson finished him. Petrino didn't. This is a prime situation of where Petrino was in zero danger against Anton. And he took the opportunity to get a good fight, a good win, and get some cage time. I believe that 100%. Don't tell me that he couldn't finish him. I watched the fight. He had plenty of opportunities. Everybody has plenty of opportunities to finish Anton Turkalj. So now let's go to Tyson Pedro's fight. He knocks him out. Well, if any of you have watched Anton fight, he has no striking defense to be heard of whatsoever.
He holds his hands here.
Exactly. So
every fight, just right here.
And I got to tell you, I didn't think Pedro looked that good. I really didn't. I was happy to cash a ticket. I was big on Pedro in that fight. I believe personally that was a 4% play, pretty heavy on by
you
finish.
Loved it. Yeah, you loved it.
But that doesn't mean that this is the same matchup. If we go to face-offs, would you like to talk about face-offs?
Oh my God. Oh yeah. Man, I thought that Pedro was going to be bigger than Petrino, and boy was I wrong. And you talked about it on the frame. When these guys enter the cage, Petrino's just going to be bigger than Tyson Pedro. And one of the things that I have an issue with Tyson Pedro is I don't think he's that fast on the feet. That was what I thought with Bukauskas. He gets flat-footed, maybe for the first couple minutes of the fight, but once those feet start going flat on Tyson Pedro, he just stands there, and you can hit him, you can move around him, you can take him down. And I think I think after the first couple minutes, Petrino can probably do whatever he wants. If he wants to win a striking battle, I think he can. And if he wants to take him down, I think he can, because I don't think Pedro's going to give him a whole lot of – I don't think he's going to stuff takedowns when he gets a little bit tired. And we watch Petrino not barely get guys down. He's got good takedown game. And I haven't seen anything from Tyson Pedro that makes me think he's going to handle Petrino. Because let me go back to Pedro's wins here. Or actually, let's do with losses. So lost, he goes to decision. He lost that one. Rua, that's in round 3, lost that one. Now he lost to OSP in round 1. Latifi in 2017 lost by decision. So anytime it goes out of the first round, he's losing. And you're going to tell me that it's going to get better when he's at 32? I don't think so. And to your point, it wasn't a one-shot huge knockout against Pleasure Man. He needed to hit him like several times. And now Pleasure Man will let you do that.
Yes.
Petrino's not going to let you do that. So I love Petrino. It's one of my favorite plays on this one, and I absolutely think he can get Tyson Pedro out of there after the first round.
You brought up a fantastic point about the footwork. Tyson Pedro stands very wide. He's got a very wide, flat-footed stance. And if you notice in his fights, he gets off balance a lot because of that stance. After he throws his kicks, he's not bouncy, he's not light on his feet. All those things are going to lead to him being there for the counter and also, like you said, being there for the takedown. He's very susceptible to an outside trip. That's one of Petrino's best takedowns. And if he gets on top of Pedro, I think it's bad news. It's bad news for Tyson Pedro.
Yeah, if Pedro does manage to get up, he's going to use so much energy that he'll go right back down again. So, yeah. Petrino by finish is a good one. And listen, you got a lot of these juiced plays, so you got to try and figure out how to make these plays better. So look for your spots for guys to win by finish or, parlaying them together. But I think this is a pretty decent one potentially by finish. So we're going to break down the main event. But, guys, we have a 5% play that is up at wagertalk.com. We're on a roll with these big plays. We cashed an easy one last week. And the second these lines came out, we were all over this one. So we had to let the 5% play cash last week. As soon as we did, bang, this 5% play went up. So we absolutely love the play. Encourage you to go grab that. And included with that is our bare knuckle fighting play of the week. We have not lost one of these. Now, we only put 2 of them up at Wager Talk. But we are 2-0. We're going to move to 3-0. And the beautiful thing about this is, so this UFC card is, I'm on the East, you and I are on the East Coast, so it's going to be middle of the afternoon, about 2 o'clock start time. Bare knuckle is right after this. So as soon as UFC gets over, we're going to roll right into bare knuckle. So of all the sports going on this weekend, MMA and bare knuckle is what I have the highest hopes for profit. So go grab that 5% play. You're going to get our best bet in that, and you're also going to get our bare knuckle play of the week. All right, Jim, I'll let you go first. Rozenstruik, Gaziev, what do you like in the main event here?
Well, I don't like either guy. I'll preface with that.
Fair enough.
But that doesn't mean that there's not money to be made, okay? I'm not a believer in Rozenstruik. I've been hearing about his... if you guys remember way back when, it was him and Francis Ngannou. They were the 2 biggest knockout artists in the heavyweight division. What in the world has Rozenstruik done to earn that lately? I think he's a shot in the dark. They wanted to build him up as this big knockout artist. He knocked out Chris Daukaus. Big deal. Big deal. You go down his record, he gets murdered by Volkov. He gets murdered by Blades, just washed. Augusto Sakai, perhaps the slowest heavyweight that the UFC has had in the past 10 years. And that includes Ben Rothwell, Martin Boudet. There's been some slow guys. Give me a break. I mean, I just don't. Everyone's talking about the level of competition, and that's a great thing to say. But when you're losing, you're losing. I don't care. Okay, I just don't care. Shamil, I think, has a lot of holes in his game, and it could be exploited in round 1. If this fight gets out of round 1, I think no matter who you bet, you're scared to death. To death.
That's a great point.
I don't see how you could be happy with anything with this fight. So this is a low-level heavyweight main event on a card that was moved across the world from where it was supposed to be. What do we always say about main events? They're scary. They're scary. Weird stuff happens. However, there's a way we can make money in this fight. I don't see a world where this fight gets over, where round 3 finishes.
Okay.
Or even starts round 3. I think 5 minutes is plenty of time for us to have all of our questions answered about these 2. So if you're looking to have something on this fight, instead of trying to be on a side, we like our our ups and downs with the main events either go the distance or they end early. I think this one ends early. So I think fight not to start round 3, fight not to start round 4 are good parlay pieces. Please do not pick a side in this fight. Please do not.
If I were, like, just think about it. A couple months ago, if I were to go, hey, Jim, check it out. UFC just booked a fight. Rozenstruik versus Gaziev. You would have been like, that's a great, nice little prelim fight.
Yeah, exactly.
I could see them starting the prelims with a good fight. Like,
yep.
no, we're gonna go.
You're right. It's the first fight of the night. First fight of the night.
This feels like a first fight of the night type of fight. Nope. Main event. Second fight. Main event.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but Shamil versus Boudet was the first fight of the night, wasn't it?
It was. I could not have been more wrong.
First fight to main event. First fight to main event.
I could not have been more wrong about that fight. I love Martin Boudet there, and just Shamil put it on him, just damaged him. So one of the interesting things about Gaziev, he's 34 years old, which you would say, he's ancient. But, he didn't start his amateur career till 2018. This is not a guy that has been absorbing the mixed martial arts or kickboxing or, all that for 20 years, So, and then even as a pro, a lot of early finishes, not fighting the best, competition in the world. The guy he fought in Contender Series was a complete joke, Greg Velasco.
Yes.
That was one of the easier cashes of the season was Gaziev by decision. So when I look at this guy, 34, but not a lot of wear and tear on that body and on that frame. And what's kind of crazy here is, Rozenstruik's 1 year older, but this guy's been doing it since 2011 with kickboxing. So I wonder, does that kind of advantage Gaziev?
Yes.
He might be a little bit fresher, right?
Damage-wise, yes. Never been knocked out. Even his losses, never been knocked out. Every time you're knocked out, that energy bar, that chin bar, just goes a little lower every time, especially when you're talking about kickboxing wear and tear. Much more wear and tear to the head than a lot of other sports. That's rough, right? It's just not good. I'm not a fan. I think you're onto something there. It's perfect.
Yeah, I like I said, I ate crow when I talked about Martin Boudet winning over Gaziev because I thought Gaziev still does have holes in his game, but his striking was so much better against Martin Boudet than I thought it was. So, and maybe when we're looking at someone like Gaziev, maybe you can make the case we just haven't really seen the best of him because he's been fighting these bums.
Yeah.
How good is he supposed to look against someone like Greg Velasco? Like, how good is he supposed to look against, some of these other guys?
Yeah.
And again, you said, all right, get some cage time in there. Don't murder this guy. But he came out and just looked unstoppable against Martin Boudet. I'm certainly not saying Martin Boudet is a, world beater or anything, but I'm with you. I'm out on Rozenstruik. Never been a Rozenstruik fan. I've made a lot of money betting against him when the time is right. I really, really wished that my bankroll was way bigger because the biggest percentage of my bankroll bet that I ever made was the Francis Ngannou fight, Francis Ngannou to win by finish. If you remember before that fight, Rozenstruik called out Ngannou. It was diabolical. And after Ngannou knocked him out, he stood there in the middle of the ring in that stoic ASMR voice. It was like, maybe you should be careful about who you call out. It was the easiest bet I've ever made in UFC. I still say that to this day. That was the easiest bet I believe I've ever made was Francis Ngannou to knock out Rozenstruik. He did it in 20 seconds. So I've enjoyed betting against Rozenstruik when he fights somebody not named Dawkins. And this is not a Dawkins. So I'm on Gaziev. I think Gaziev wins. Yeah. Just it's a Rozenstruik fate.
I would lean. I agree with you on that. We're making a pick for. I agree. I would lean Gaziev. I just won't have my money on it.
I'm not betting it. I'm not betting it either. Yeah. There's other spots on the card. So Radzhabov and Al-Selwady, I think we're both kind of laying off that one. For purposes of the video, we'll go with Al-Selwady. Klein and Cunningham, Klein by finish. Duncan and Ribeiro, Duncan's the pick, maybe by finish. Basharat and Zahabi, definitely love Basharat, possibly by finish. Jim, you talked about the submission late, maybe round 2, round 3. Oliveira and Benardo, looking at that fight to not go the distance. I'm a little bit higher on Vinicius Oliveira just with his power. Anders and Pickett, stay away. Matt Schnell and Erceg, we're on Erceg. We're all aboard the Erceg train. He's earned our respect. Umar and Bekzat, we like Umar to win, obviously, but little on the fence about how to play it after how chummy they were at face-offs. But, I mean, if Umar's dialed in and wants to make a case for a title shot, he should get this guy out of here quick.
You bring up a great statement. He has to. He has to.
Can't screw around on this.
You cannot go decision. Yeah.
If he does, it would be unbelievably foolish.
A massive error. To
screw around, in that one. So, Alex Perez and Mokaev, we're going fade the side hustle theory. We're going Mokaev on that one. Petrino and Pedro, we love Petrino, probably by finish if Pedro gasses. And then Rozenstruik and Gaziev, probably the under at some point. Taking some kind of under. Eileen Gaziev, but I'm not going to get to the window on it. I don't want to bet on this prelim fight. That's masquerading as a main event. So, all right, good stuff, guys. Don't forget to grab that 5% play. It comes with the bare knuckle play of the week. Good luck on all your plays. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you're liking this week. Always loves hearing for you. Remember to practice good bankroll management. And we will see everyone next time and next week when we break down UFC 299.
Take care, guys.